Did you know there are passages in the Bible that churches traditionally avoid analyzing in detail? Passages so disturbing that many religious leaders prefer to keep them secret? Today I'm going to reveal 7 biblical secrets that could shake your faith. But before I continue, I need you to do something very important. If you are here because you want to discover the truth in honesty, if you want to know truths that no one has had the courage to say, then click on the little bell. That has been following me until now. And now this is going to shock you. But first I'm going to ask you to leave a comment. Write Revelation if you have the courage to discover truths that can completely change your perspective of the Bible. I've been studying the hidden mysteries of the Holy Scriptures for over a decade. What I've discovered has left me disturbed, confused, yet fascinated. That's why no one should live without knowing the truth. Today, I'll share with you 7 biblical mysteries that churches traditionally neglect or avoid explaining. If you're one of those truth seekers who hasn't yet subscribed, click the bell and turn on notifications. I'll be posting more content soon that will change your perspective on religion. But did you know that today's video is very special? Because I'm going to reveal things that might shock even the most devout Christians. We're talking about mysteries that are literally written in the Bible, but are rarely discussed from the pulpit. And look, before we start, if you've made it this far, leave a like on the video because it really motivates me to keep bringing you this kind of brave content. Mystery 1. The Nephilim, the hybrid giants. The first mystery I will reveal to you concerns the Nephilim. Genesis 6:4 says, "There were giants in the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into contact with the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. They became mighty men of old, men of renown." But here's what the church doesn't tell you. Who exactly were these sons of God? The traditional interpretation suggests they were descendants of Seth, but ancient texts like the Book of Enoch, considered canonical by many Jewish communities, reveal a much more disturbing truth. The Nephilim were the result of the union of fallen angels and human women. They were gigantic hybrid beings who dominated the earth before the flood. And most surprisingly, they weren't completely wiped out by the flood. Numbers 13:33 confirms this. We also saw there giants, descendants of Anak, descendants of giants. We were like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we were in their eyes. Why do churches avoid talking about this? Because it raises troubling questions about the nature of angels, spiritual genetics, and what really happened in ancient times. Mystery 2. The true identity of Melchizedek. In Hebrews 7:3, it is written about Melchizedek, without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like the Son of God, he remains a priest forever. Friends, do you realize what this means? We're talking about a being without normal human origins, without genealogy, without beginning or end. Who was Melchizedek really? Some ancient interpretations suggest that he was a pre-incarnate manifestation of Christ himself. Other Jewish traditions claim that it was Shem, son of Noah, who was blessed with supernatural longevity. But the most disturbing interpretation is that Melchizedek was a being from another spiritual dimension, possibly an angel or a direct divine manifestation. This is why Abraham, the father of faith, bowed down to him and paid tithes. Mystery 3. The mystery of Ezekiel and the extraterrestrial beings. Now comes one of the most controversial passages in the Bible, Ezekiel's vision in chapter 1. Ezekiel describes beings with 4 faces, wheels within wheels, and a ship descending from the sky with fire and gleaming metal. Ezekiel 1:4-5. Then I looked, and behold, a violent wind was coming from the north, and a great cloud with roaring fire around it, and brightness around it. And out of the midst of it was something like gleaming metal in the midst of the fire. And out of the midst of it came the likeness of 4 living creatures. Friends, reading the full description, it sounds more like an encounter with otherworldly beings than traditional angels. Ezekiel describes in great technological detail something I've never seen before. The wheels within wheels moving in every direction, the multifaceted beings, the descriptions of shining metal. Many modern scholars suggest that Ezekiel was describing an extraterrestrial contact experience. Why doesn't the church speak about this? Because it completely challenges the traditional interpretation of angels and divine manifestations. Mystery 4. The disappearance of Enoch and Elijah. Two men in the Bible never died, Enoch and Elijah. But what really happened to them? Genesis 5:24 says, "And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him." And concerning Elijah, in 2 Kings 2:11, "While they yet went on and talked, behold, a chariot of fire and horses of fire parted the two of them, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind to heaven." Friends, we're talking about physical translation. Two human beings who were physically transported to another dimension. But where are they now? What are they doing? Revelation 11 speaks of two witnesses who will appear at the end of time, and many scholars believe they will be Enoch and Elijah, returning to fulfill a specific mission. Mystery 5. The Fallen Angels and the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch, considered sacred scripture in Jesus' time, reveals shocking details about the fallen angels. It names the leaders of the angelic rebellion and describes how they taught forbidden knowledge to humanity. Azazel taught weapon making and cosmetics. Semyaza taught charms and root cutting. Armaros taught spellcasting. Barakel taught astrology. These fallen angels not only rebelled against God, but also actively corrupted humanity with knowledge they weren't meant to possess. And, according to Enoch, they are trapped in an abyss awaiting final judgment. Mystery 6. The true nature of Shelley. The Bible constantly speaks of Sheol, translated as hell or grave. But what is this place really? Unlike the modern concept of hell, Sheol was considered a waiting place where all souls, both righteous and unrighteous, went after death. It was divided into compartments: Abraham's bosom for the righteous and a place of torment for the wicked. But here's the mystery. Jesus descended into Sheol after his death, Ephesians 4:9, and freed the captives. This means there was a fundamental change in the spiritual structure of the universe after the crucifixion. Mystery 7. The Seal of Solomon and control over demons. Solomon was not only wise, but he also had power over the dark spiritual world. The Testament of Solomon describes how he controlled demons to build the temple and how he discovered the names and functions of various demonic entities. The famous Seal of Solomon was not just a symbol, but a true spiritual tool that granted him authority over supernatural forces. This explains why Solomon was able to build the most magnificent temple in history and why his wisdom was supernatural. But this will shock you. According to ancient texts, Solomon received a ring from God that allowed him to command 72 major demons, each with their own legions. He knew their true names and could compel them to work on the construction of the temple. And if this sounds fantastic, let me tell you more. There is archaeological evidence that the stones of Solomon's temple were cut and transported in a way that defies the engineering of the time. Stones weighing thousands of tons were moved without modern tools. How was this possible? Mystery 8. The true meaning of the Apocalypse of John. Friends, I'm going to reveal something to you that will completely change your perspective on Revelation. Most people believe John was describing future events, but what if I told you he was describing an already existing spiritual reality? John 1:10 says, "I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day." Friends, John was transported to another dimension. He didn't see the future, but rather the spiritual reality that occurs parallel to our physical world. The creatures John describes, the beings with eyes everywhere, the beasts, the horsemen, may be descriptions of spiritual entities that exist right now, influencing our physical reality. And what's interesting is that many of John's descriptions are similar to Ezekiel's visions and the experiences of other prophets. This suggests that there is a consistent spiritual world that those with this special ability can access. Mystery 9. The Lost Papers of Qumran. In 1947, the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered at Qumran. But what most people don't know is that many of these documents have yet to be fully revealed to the public. Why? Because they contain information that contradicts many traditional interpretations of the Bible. Among the documents found is one called the Book of Giants, which details the history of the Nephilim and their interactions with humanity. Another disturbing document is the Apocalypse of Abraham, which describes how Abraham was taken to heaven and saw the creation of the universe from a completely different perspective. It describes multiple dimensions and parallel realities. Furthermore, a document called the Ages of Creation was found that suggests that our current reality is not God's first creation, but a recreation after a previous cosmic cataclysm. Mystery 10. The true identity of the cherubim. When you think of cherubs, you probably picture adorable babies with wings, right? Wrong. Biblical cherubs are terrifying beings who guard God's throne. Ezekiel 10:14 describes them. Each one had 4 faces. The first was the face of a cherub, the second was the face of a man, the third was the face of a lion, and the fourth was the face of an eagle. These beings have multiple faces, multiple wings, and are described as having an appearance that terrifies even the bravest prophets. They are the guardians of the Garden of Eden and the bearers of God's throne. But here's the mystery. Why does God need such powerful guardians? What exactly are they protecting? And why do they seem so intimidating? Some texts suggest that cherubim are not only guardians, but also judges with power over life and death. They are described as beings capable of annihilating entire nations with a single breath. Mystery 11. The mystery of the Transfiguration. The Transfiguration of Jesus is one of the most mysterious events in the New Testament. Matthew 17:2 says, "And he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light." But here's what no one talks about. Peter, James, and John not only saw Jesus transfigured, but they also saw Moses and Elijah speaking to him. 2 men who had been dead for centuries, in Moses' case, or translated, in Elijah's case, appeared physically. This proves that there is a dimension where the dead remain conscious and can manifest physically when necessary. It proves that time works differently in the spiritual world. It proves that there is a parallel reality where Old Testament saints remain active. And there's more. Luke 9:31 reveals what they were talking about. He appeared in glory and spoke of his departure, which was to take place at Jerusalem. They were discussing the plan of salvation from an eternal perspective. Mystery 12. The destructive angels. The Bible speaks of angels whose specific function is to bring destruction. In 2 Samuel 24:16, a destroying angel kills 70,000 people in Israel. In Exodus 12:23, the angel of death kills all the firstborn in Egypt. These are not fallen angels, but rather angels obedient to God who execute divine judgments. This raises troubling questions about the nature of God and how the spiritual world actually works. Revelation 9 describes angels released to torture humanity for 5 months. They are described as locusts with human faces, women's hair, lions, teeth, and scorpion tails. Why does God have angels specifically designated for destruction? What does this tell us about the nature of divine justice? And more importantly, are these angels active today? Mystery 13. The Book of Life and the Erased Names. Revelation 3:5 says something shocking. "He who overcomes will be clothed in white, and I will never blot out his name from the book of life." This implies that names can be blotted out of the book of life. This contradicts the doctrine of eternal security taught by many churches. It suggests that salvation is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process that can be lost. But here's the deeper mystery. The book of life isn't just a list of names. Revelation 20:12 mentions that there are several books. "Then I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and the books were opened. Another book was opened, which is the book of life." What information do these other books contain? Why are multiple records needed? And how exactly does the judicial process based on these books work? Mystery 14. The resurrection of the saints. Matthew 27:52-53 records something absolutely extraordinary that happened when Jesus died. "And the tombs were opened, and the bodies of many holy ones who had fallen asleep arose. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they came into the holy city and appeared to many." Friends, do you see what this means? When Jesus died, several Old Testament saints were resurrected and appeared in Jerusalem. This wasn't a temporary resurrection. It was a permanent resurrection. But herein lies the mystery. What happened to these resurrected saints? Where did they go? Why don't the Gospels mention them further? And why is this extraordinary event only briefly mentioned? Some scholars suggest that these resurrected saints were taken with Jesus when he ascended to heaven. Others believe they continued to live hidden on earth. Mystery 15. The seven churches and the local angels. Revelation 2 and 3 speak of the seven churches of Asia, but each church has a specific angel to whom the message is addressed. Who are these angels? They cannot be human shepherds, because the language used is clearly supernatural. They cannot be ordinary heavenly angels, because they are rebuked and praised as if they were responsible for the actions of the churches. The most disturbing interpretation is that each church, each community, each region has a specific guardian angel responsible for the spiritual state of that area. This means that there is an angelic hierarchy that governs specific geographical territories. Daniel 10:13 confirms this when it speaks of the ruler of the kingdom of Persia, who resisted the angel sent to Daniel. Angels rule entire nations, and some of them may have become corrupted. And now we come to the most shocking part of all. Do you see what all these mysteries have in common? They reveal a spiritual world much more complex and disturbing than what we've been taught. We are talking about hybrid beings that dominated the earth, fallen angels who taught forbidden knowledge, spiritual dimensions that intersect with our reality, human beings who have been transported to other dimensions, hidden knowledge that was deliberately hidden, angelic hierarchies that govern territories, resurrections that happened besides Jesus, heavenly books that record every human action, destroying angels who execute divine judgments. Why does the traditional church avoid talking about this? Because you question its control over the interpretation of Scripture. Because it reveals that spiritual reality is far more complex than Sunday sermons. But here's the most shocking truth of all. These mysteries aren't just ancient history. They're happening now. The spiritual forces that influenced the ancient world are still active today. The angels who govern territories are still in place. The demons revealed to Solomon still exist. And if you've made it this far, if you've had the courage to listen to these revelations, you're part of a special group of people who aren't afraid of the truth. Leave brave in the comments if you're one of them. But wait, there's so much more I haven't talked about today. There are mysteries even more disturbing than anything you've heard so far. I have archaeological evidence that proves the existence of giants. I have ancient texts that describe angelic hierarchies in detail. I have discoveries that will change everything you think about Bible prophecy. And here's what will keep you up at night. There's a Bible prophecy that points to the year 2024-2025 as a period of massive revelations. The prophecies sealed by Daniel are being revealed now. If you want me to make a video revealing archaeological evidence of biblical giants, write giants in the comments. If you want me to explain angelic and demonic hierarchies, write angels. If you want me to reveal prophecies being fulfilled right now, write prophecies. But I recently discovered something that's even more shocking than all of this. It has to do with what Jesus really meant when he spoke of other worlds and many mansions in the Father's house. It could completely change your understanding of the afterlife. And you know what disturbs me most? There's a passage in Ecclesiastes that suggests our current reality is just one of many ages God created. That there were other humanities before us. Ecclesiastes 3:15 says, "What has been, and what will be has been, and God restores what has passed away." This suggests cycles of creation and recreation that most people have never considered. If you want me to do a full video on the other humanities that came before us, leave cycles in the comments. This will be the most controversial video I've ever made. And look, there's one more thing I need to tell you. There is an interpretation of the Bible that suggests that what we call the second coming of Jesus is not a future event, but something that is happening gradually through revelations like the ones I'm sharing with you. Jesus promised that He would leave no one orphaned, and that he would send the Spirit of truth to reveal everything. What if these revelations now emerging are part of this prophetic fulfillment? That's why it's so important that you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because I'll reveal things that could change the course of human history. So guys, what do you think? Have these mysteries changed your perspective of the Bible? Have they changed your perspective of the spiritual world? Have they changed your perspective of your own existence? The truth is that the Bible is much deeper and more mysterious than we've been taught. It reveals a universe where dimensions intersect, where beings from other worlds interfere in human history, where hidden knowledge has been deliberately concealed, where cycles of creation and recreation occur over the centuries. But the most important thing is that these mysteries shouldn't distance us from faith. On the contrary, they should show us that God is much greater, much more powerful, much more mysterious than we imagined, that the universe is much more complex and fascinating than any science fiction. And you know what else is amazing? You're not discovering this by chance. Perhaps you're among those chosen to learn these truths at this historic moment. Perhaps you're part of a generation that will witness revelations that have been withheld for millennia. If you've come this far, if you've assimilated all this knowledge, you have a responsibility. You can't stay silent. You can't keep it to yourself. You need to share these revelations with those who also seek the truth. So I ask you, like the video if it opened your mind. Subscribe to the channel if you want to continue this journey of discovery. And share it with people you know who have the courage to question and seek the truth. Because there are many people tired of superficial answers and longing to know the deeper side of faith. And you can be the channel God uses to bring them this revelation. And look, before I finish, I need to tell you something personal. When I began to discover these truths, I went through a deep spiritual crisis. I questioned everything I believed. I was afraid of the implications of what I was discovering, but then I realized that the truth is not our enemy. The truth is liberating. Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." No matter how disturbing that truth may be, it's always better than living in ignorance. So I encourage you, don't be afraid to question, to seek, to discover. God isn't threatened by our questions. On the contrary, He's pleased when we seek to know Him more deeply. And remember, you are not alone on this journey. We are a community of truth seekers. We are people who don't settle for superficial answers. We are those who have the courage to look into the abyss of mystery and not turn back. Tell me in the comments which mystery impacted you the most and which one you'd like me to explore in the next video. Also, tell me how these revelations are changing your perspective on the world. Your participation is crucial to continue providing you with content like this. And if you know someone who needs to hear these truths, someone who's questioning their faith, someone seeking deeper answers, tag them in the comments. Let's share these revelations with as many people as possible, because time is running out, friends. We live in an era of massive revelations. Knowledge that has been hidden for centuries is being revealed. Prophecies that seemed impossible are being fulfilled before our eyes. And you, who have made it this far, are part of this special generation that will witness things that previous generations only dreamed of seeing. Before you go, I want you to reflect on something. How many times have you heard sermons that left you with more questions than answers? How many times have you felt there was something deeper in the scriptures that wasn't being revealed? Seeking the truth is your right. You don't have to accept superficial interpretations. You can question, study, and deepen your knowledge. But remember, with great knowledge comes great responsibility. These mysteries are not meant to entertain, but to transform. Their purpose is to help you better understand the world you live in and the God you serve. So I leave you with this thought. If these truths have been written in the Bible for thousands of years, why are you uncovering them now? What else is hidden, waiting to be revealed? If you want to continue this journey of discovery, if you want to discover truths that will change your life, stay with me. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and together we'll unravel the deepest mysteries of faith. And remember, the truth doesn't fear investigation. It only fears ignorance. See you next time, and may God bless you all in your search for the truth. Now I need you to do something very important. If this video opened your mind to new possibilities, if it made you question things you've never questioned before, then share it with people who are also searching for the truth. Because there are many people tired of superficial answers and longing to know the deeper side of faith, and you can be the channel God uses to bring them this revelation. Tell me in the comments which mystery moved you the most and which one you'd like me to explore in the next video. Your participation is crucial to continue providing you with content like this. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and ring the bell, because the next videos will be even more revealing. Until the next revelation, God bless.